I'm here with Dylan Tanner. Now, Dylan, one of the questions that I often get when I'm outside hunting is, how do I sharpen my knife? And I've experienced it. I'm not great at putting an edge on my knife. I get it when I'm working on my deer, my elk, halfway through, I've got to sharpen again and again. So proper technique for keeping an edge or putting an edge back on your knife.
For sure. Well, there's a lot that goes into it, Gary. The angle definitely matters. It depends on what kind of grind that you have on your knife. There's a lot of factors. When you're out in the field, typically you're going to have a stone and possibly a strop. And it's really hard to keep an accurate angle because you're doing everything by hand. There's no gauge. And so as you're doing it, you're going to want to hold and pull the knife away from you on a strop and toward on a stone. And so with most knives, when it gets dull, it's not that your edge is totally ruined. There's something called a burr. And so a burr is a small little shaving of metal that forms right on that edge, and it's going to flex one way or another, and it's going to kind of give a rounding effect, and it won't cut. And so what you're doing when you're resharpening is you're basically just taking that burr and realigning it back up to straight and kind of thinning it down a little bit. And so on a stone, you're going to come toward yourself. The steeper you hold an angle, the longer it's going to last, but it won't be as smooth cutting. The narrower you hold an angle, the shorter it'll last, but the nicer it'll cut. And so on a stone, you're going to pull towards you, and on a strop, you're going to pull away from you like this. And you're just trying to kind of realign that burr, make sure your edge looks nice and even, and that should get you going.
Now tell people what a strop is.
So a strop is typically a piece of leather that's attached to some sort of base. This is just a piece of walnut, but the leather usually will have a compound on it, some sort of buffing or polishing compound applied to the leather. And so instead of using a typical abrasive on your edge, this is like a really micro fine abrasive that's just really polishing and getting that edge nice and pretty.
Very cool. All right, so Dylan, this is kind of a cool machine. Yep. We all wish we had one. How does it work?
So this is the Wicked Edge Generation 3. It basically takes all of the human error out of sharpening. And so what you do is you have these stones, and they work up by grit. And so grit is how many grains of abrasive are in a particular area. And so typically you'll start really low with 100 or 200 and really get that first edge on there. If the knife has never been sharpened before, you need to put that edge on. Okay. And then you work up. And so with this one, it's been sharpened before. We're just kind of tuning it up. And this one is nice because it adjusts your angle. The angle right now is set for these at 18 degrees per side. And so we're going to start here, probably 800 grit. And because it's set, you don't have to worry about, oh, I slipped or my hand is not in the perfect spot. And so you basically just start at the back and you're going to work forward. And while you're doing this, you want to do everything to one side that you do to the other. And you can see it's kind of hitting that bevel at a weird angle. And so you just kind of want to work until that whole bevel gets equal. And then you can flip up to your 1000 grit and keep going. And this whole process is basically just going to follow up this progression up until you get into this same leather strop that we were talking about. You're going to have these that ride on this, and they've got different grits of that micro compound. And you can take it all the way up to a dead mirror polish.
Buy a shank knife, you can send it into them. They will sharpen it up just like this. It'll come back razor sharp. They'll ship it back to you at their charge, and you can do that for the lifetime of your shank knife.